Well, good afternoon, folks. We are certainly excited to see you today. Super happy to be here on this fine November day. It still feels like maybe even September outside. So excited that you're here. But we have got a really exciting program for you today. Give us just a minute as we get some more people to come on. But we're going to talk about Family Reading Night, Illinois Family Reading Night, and what better book to use during Family Reading Night than Love Grows. So we're going to talk about that with author Ruth Spiro. So give us just a minute and we will get started. So yeah, it's hard to believe that it is November and the leaves aren't even off my trees yet. So we'll see. Usually I'm all done and the lawnmower's put away by now. So
ours just started falling like these last few days. Everything was still on the trees. Now all of a sudden everything's like gone.
and it's a little windy and it was green too. Just things are still
Yeah,
green. So
yeah.
awesome. Well, folks, we're going to get started because we got an action-packed day. We're super excited that you're here to join us with our Ag in the Classroom, Authors in Illinois Ag in the Classroom program. Today, we have a very special guest. In addition to Ruth Spiro, the author of Love Grows, I've got Bonnie Matthias, and Bonnie is in charge of the Family Reading Night. So, Bonnie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll share your slides that we've got. But tell us a little bit about yourself and Family Reading Night.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that I am the coordinator for the Illinois Center for the Book at the State Library. And one of our programs is Family Reading Night. And Family Reading Night is always celebrated the third Thursday in November. And what we do at the State Library is that we give out bookmarks and posters to the public libraries and schools every year. And so we just got done doing a huge mailer to the schools and libraries. And if you haven't received your bookmarks and posters yet, they are on their way. Sometimes they get hooked up in the mail a little bit, but they are on their way. So we hope that you appreciate those and can utilize those. If you need any additional, you can always download additional posters and bookmarks on the website. And this is the poster and the bookmarks this year. We only send out the English bookmarks, but you can download Spanish bookmarks. And there's a copy of the Spanish bookmark here at the top. And then just on the next two slides, we have some programming ideas from past participants and that. And Ruth is going to give us some great ideas from her book, Love Grows. So I'll just turn it over to Kevin and Ruth from here. So
Well, and with that, though, let's put a plug in for the Family Reading Night, sponsored by the Center for the Book as part of the Secretary of State's office. Help us a little bit with that, Bonnie. Tell us the whole structure where Family Reading Night comes from.
Well, Family Reading Night is a program of the Illinois Center for the Book, and we are based in the State Library, and we are a program of the Secretary of State's office. And we have partners in this effort, which is the Illinois Reading Council and the Illinois Library Association. So we appreciate our partners in these efforts as well. So thank you everyone for that
Well,
too.
and with that, this is kind of the accumulating activity for the Illinois
Yes,
Reads program.
yes,
We're next month we're going to announce the new ones, but this
right.
month it's kind of the accumulation activity. Put a little plug in for Illinois Reads while you're there.
It is. Illinois Reads is an annual reading program for children, birth through and through adults. And there we highlight 6 different books at 6 different age ranges each year, and we highlight Illinois authors. And that's a big thing about the Illinois Center for the Book. We're all about highlighting Illinois authors and illustrators. So each year we have a list, and we kick off with a book festival every year in the spring. And then Illinois Reads, the culminating activity is with Family Reading Night every year. So this is
And
our
Let me tell you, folks, I've worked on this committee with Bonnie for a couple of years. She has a binder this thick of Illinois authors. And when Illinois Reads was first announced 13 years ago, I'm like, huh, wonder if they're going to be able to pull this off. And they are, because we have so many authors that are putting out so many fantastic books. So
Yes.
really excited about that. And I've gotten to know Bonnie a little bit better over the last couple of years as we've worked closely on this, but super excited about Family Reading Night and wanted to put a plug in for that right now because it's just an awesome opportunity. So if you need more information, just Google Illinois Secretary of State and Family Reading Night, and it'll come up. It's all there under Center for the Book, but all
Mhm.
sorts of information. And Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us. She's going to stay in the background, folks. If you have questions or you want to know more things, we're going to have you put that into the Q&A. Put that in the Q&A, and we'll take those questions as we go. But Bonnie's going to join us. We are certainly excited to have Ruth Spiro here, and she's the author of the new Love Grows. This is I don't know how many years you've been on the Illinois Reads list, Ruth. Several. You've been on a couple of times, so
I think like maybe three or four. And every year
yeah.
it's always just it's so exciting because there's so many amazing events and going to the kickoff event and having those bookmarks and the Illinois Reading Council and it's always I mean first of all it's an honor to have a book chosen for that and just to be in the great company of all those other amazing Illinois authors. So
And we will talk a little bit about this a little bit next month, but I'll put a plug in for it. So there'll be a kickoff coming up in December. And then there's an event that'll be in April for Illinois authors. And then another thing that is super exciting that the Center for the Book does is a number of authors are asked to come to the state fair. And that's my thing. There's some cool things to do at the state fair, and you get to meet the authors. We saw pictures of Ruth hugging kids and giving out books and signing books, and for those students to get a chance to meet the authors, I think that's just a phenomenal thing. So
yeah, I was able to do it for the last 2 summers to come down to the state fair and have some corn and see the butter cow and sign lots and lots of books for the kids. It's just so wonderful to be able to participate. So I just appreciate the
and it's the extra plug. People like knowing what it is, and you're from a publisher perspective, from an author perspective, your name is on that bookmark. You are targeted with other fine Illinois authors, so that's just a really really cool thing. But let's talk a little bit about this book and describe the book Love Grows for us.
So Love Grows is about it started out I started writing it during COVID when I was looking around and, it wasn't really even looking for a new idea, but I looked at the corner of my desk and I thought, I have all these plants, like I have a house full of plants, and my daughter's into plants, and we would take cuttings and exchange them. And I said to myself, I should write a book about plants because, and it was also, I was working on the How to Explain Science to a Grown-Up series.
Mhm.
And part of that series is all about empowering kids to think about like, what do they know a lot about and what are they into? And then how are they going to share that with other people? Right. So let's see, I have one. So the one that came out this year is How to Explain Climate Science to a Grown-Up. And when I do school visits, and I'm getting to the
Nope,
point
that's
of answering
perfect.
your
Yep.
question. So when I do school visits, so the first one is how to explain coding, the second one is how to explain robotics, and the third one is climate science. So when I do school visits, I'm not going to stand up there and talk about coding, right? Because I'm an author. I talk about like other things than just those like nitty-gritty topics. And when I started to think about it, I'm like, you know what these books are really about? They're about finding the thing. Like, we all know those kids that even when they're little, they can name all the dinosaurs, they name all the presidents, or they live for playing soccer or whatever it might be. But when I say to kids in an author visit, what are you good at? What do you know a lot about? They all raise their hand, and it's soccer, Legos, gymnastics, whatever it might be. And so kids are they love to tell their grown-ups about or their friends. So there's a lot of fun activities you can do with those books because, okay, so for example, if you are really good at soccer or you know a lot about soccer, how are you going to share that? Are you going to write a story about it? Are you going to give a demonstration, make a video, do an art project, whatever it might be? So that's kind of what I talk about. And I was thinking about all those things and how I was going to be presenting these and everything. And I thought, well, what's my thing, right? What would I share a lot about? And obviously writing is one of them, but also houseplants. Like I like things that grow. I have tons of plants in my house. I have a garden in my yard. I'm always growing vegetables and cucumbers and flowers and everything. So I started to think, well, what kind of a book could I write about plants? And I realized there really weren't that many books out there about house plants, yet everyone I know has plants in their house. I mean, at least one little cactus on the windowsill, right? So that's kind of how it started out. And I'll just give you a little like secret, backstory. The first one, it was more of a counting book, right? It was like one plant and then two plants. And my agent, when I sent it to her, she was like, I think it needs another layer to it. Like where's the heart of this? And then I started to think, we were in the middle of everyone kind of staying at home, and there was a lot of like, across the miles kind of relationships where you haven't seen your favorite aunt in a long time, or, writing letters and emails back and forth. And so I got the idea of, and that was another thing I wanted to write about a relationship that you don't often see in books. And I know I had some special aunties growing up, and I don't have any sisters, but I have some best friends that my children called Auntie so and so growing up. And whether it's an aunt by blood or your mom's BFF, a lot of kids have relationships with their aunts. And I think it's a really important relationship. Like I always said to my kids, if there's anything you don't feel comfortable talking to me about, you can call up Aunt Susan and you can talk to her and she will help you out with whatever that problem or issue or whatever it is. So, I mean, of course, I, hope they feel comfortable talking to me, but, like boy problems or whatever it is. So I decided that that was a relationship that I wanted to explore in this book. And so I made it about an aunt, and it's across the miles, and it's epistolary, which is it's all told in letters, right? So it starts out with the little girl is getting a letter from her aunt, and with the letter is a plant for her to grow. And each spread is, first of all, oh my gosh, it's illustrated by Lucy Ruth Cummins, who I'm sure if you know books, you'll know her work. She's fabulous. And so the art in here is just incredible. And so each spread is a different letter and a different house plant that the aunt is sending to the little girl. And we learn all about different plants. And there's a little information in the corner, just a little, tidbit of a fun fact or information. And one of the things I love about this is my picture book it has like a centerfold. There's like a big, because this fiddly fig is just too big, and you have to turn the book this way. So that's kind of where it came from. Oh, and then I had back matter, but instead of making a separate spread, she put it in the end papers. And some of us, we love end papers, right? Like that's always a fun thing to see. And there's like information about all the different plants that are in the book. So that is kind of the backstory behind Love Grows and where the idea came from. And yeah, so it's a big, beautiful book. And I was really excited that it was chosen for Illinois Reads last year. We're coming to the end where we sort of pass the crown, right, to the next group of authors. And so, yeah, and this book, I guess I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but it's a 2-book series. But the interesting thing is that the next book is illustrated by someone else. And so it has a completely different look to it, which is kind of cool. Like I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that book comes out in February, and I'm super excited for that one.
So that one actually comes out on National FFA Day. So that's something we're really excited about. That's why surprise alert. We're working with Ruth on some stuff to do that. Go ahead and talk about the next book, Ruth, since we're there.
Okay.
Yeah, twist your
Okay.
arm because you shared that it was it kind of follows up. But why don't you kind of give us a little preview of that?
Okay. So the next book is called I don't have a copy of it yet. So
Uh-huh.
it's called Growing Together, and it's illustrated by Paula Escobar, who she won a Pura Belpré Award for planting hope, and it's the story of Pura Belpré. And so she is an award-winning illustrator, and this is about an urban community garden and another little girl who discovers um, the joys of gardening. And it's similar to Love Grows in that each spread is about a different type of plant that you would grow in a garden. And it gives information about it. It's in rhyme. And she comes together with members of her community and meets different people in her neighborhood. And they're all in this community garden together. And we have, different kinds of plants and different foods that we eat and herbs. And there's a spread about pollinators. And that one does have a nice back matter page with information about all the plants. But I'm a gardener, so I had such a good time writing this and picking out. I had to structure it because it's, over the summer. So I was like, okay, well, what plants or what fruits or vegetables do we harvest early in the season, and then what happens toward the end of the season, and then there's the time where there's the zucchini is coming out, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with all the zucchini? And it was funny because what I wanted to do was just sort of break the whole pattern of the rhythm, and my editor didn't go for it, but one of the lines that I wrote was, there's no time to rhyme, we have to pick the zucchini. But and then you see there are some bushels that are labeled food pantry, so they're donating some of their excess produce to the food pantry, and then in the end, everyone comes together for a big meal. And I mean, her art is just gorgeous and luminous, and it's a very diverse community that they live in, and I'm really excited for this one to come out.
I am too. You'd shared with me that it was kind of the sequel, kind of together. I was thinking it was going to be Lucy, but it's a totally another girl. So it's not like you have to know this to depend on it. But
Right, right.
that's
I thought it would be like another, just a continuation. And I think she was busy and had so much on her plate that she couldn't take it on. And so when we decided it was going to be Paula, I was like, I mean, I knew her work, I was familiar with it, and it's beautiful. So I'm very
well,
excited.
awesome. We kind of jumped ahead, but I want to get back to Love Grows because growing together, we're super excited about. We'll probably be doing this next harvest season, Ruth. So we'll definitely be talking about that. But let's go back to Love Grows just a little bit. So you explained the ant, you explained the back matter, you did all of those options, but the idea of basing it around letters, I didn't know. It makes perfect sense now with the doing this during COVID, during the
Yeah,
shutdown. But I think that's something that students really can pick up on from because it's not a screen, it's not a phone call,
right.
it's not a post. It was literally a letter, and that
Yes.
aspect of writing letters. Tell me a little bit about your letter writing throughout the. Was that something you drew on? Was that something you did with certain people? Did you have pen pals?
Actually I did growing up. Yeah, I did. And I mean, I grew up at a time like, I would go to summer camp for a few weeks in the summer, and you would write letters back and forth. And I mean, even in college, I had some friends that went to other schools, and we would send postcards to each other just for the fun of it. And then I started collecting postcards, and then all my friends were studying abroad, and I couldn't because my program was like I needed to be there. and everyone was sending me postcards from all their trips that they went on. And I just think that there's that lost art of writing letters. And even though, if you think about it, like the and in here is probably a millennial, right? I mean, these are young. And the fact that they're just writing letters, but also because she's sending her a gift. So she's putting the letter in with the plant that she's sending. Um, I don't know. I think it's a good thing to expose children to something a little bit different and maybe what they would consider a little bit retro, but I think it's coming back. I definitely think it's going to come back. And
Well,
kids have to learn handwriting, right? It's a developmental skill. I mean, they should be learning it. So,
but and there's no cursive except for the auntie. She signs her name. It's a little cursiver, because that whole cursive thing is a part of
yeah.
it. But yeah, I actually spent a summer at a summer camp as a college student and rained for 40 days. We were ready to build an ark. It was a rainy summer that year. But my I would send postcards, and I don't have very nice handwriting, and so my parents and my grandparents and my aunts and uncles would all spend time trying to figure out what he said. They'd put it down for a little bit and come back to see what it said. But I think that's just awesome. So we talked a little bit about the back matter, and it was really funny when this book came up. I with Illinois Reads from an ag in the classroom perspective, people are like, "Well, help me with the agriculture here, Kevin." And I'm like, "It's houseplants. It's houseplants. Not everybody grows corn. Not everybody. Where do things come from?" So we'll get to some of our lessons that we developed to go along with this. But we are so excited because again, as you talk about just the phenomenal back matter here, and you talked a little bit about plants, and those of you who are joining us either live or watching this, you get a chance to win a book, but you got to do this. So Ruth, out of all your plants, what's your favorite plant? So you got to have this
So,
answer, folks, for what our favorite plant is in order to win the prize. So
well, looking at my desk here, I have a cutting from a Monstera plant, which is, I have a large one downstairs in my living room, and I have probably four other plants that came from cuttings from that original plant. And what I love about these, it's really interesting. So these leaves are all solid. Yeah, so this guy's been I started growing this on my windowsill in water. I propagated it. And then once it got big enough and the roots were abundant, then I put it in soil. Let me just move this because I talk with my hands and I don't want to just knock that over. So the interesting thing about the Monstera, which kids also love to hear about when I go to schools. So as the Monstera gets older, there will be these slits and holes in the leaf. They are called fenestrations, and these have developed because the Monstera it normally grows in like rainforest areas where the foliage is very dense, and it evolved to growing those. And I always ask, well, why do you think it has those slits and those holes in the leaves? And the reason is because those will allow the sun and the rain to filter through to the leaves and the plants below. If they were all these big solid leaves, then they might catch all the rain and it wouldn't make it to the ground. And then the lower leaves wouldn't get any light on them. And so it evolved to have these openings so that the lower leaves and the soil and the ground below would get both the rain and the sun. And I just think there's just so many like interesting facts about, plants. But so I'm just, waiting for this little plant to start growing some more leaves. And, when the first one comes out and it has the fenestrations, it's always kind of exciting. Like, okay, you've matured now.
So now, was this something you knew early, or was this that you did extra research as you were doing the plant book?
So there's 10 plants in the book. Each spread has a different plant on it. And I think pretty much all of them are ones that I have. The only one I didn't have was a spider plant. And someone recently gave me, what's really cool about spider plants is they grow these little offshoots called spiderets that you can cut off and you can root those. And someone was like, you don't how do you not have a spider plant? And
That
they
one
gave me
seems to
one
be
of
the easy one. Yeah.
right? They gave me one of their little spiderets, and so now I have one. But I did research on all of the plants just so I would know, because there's a little bit about like how to care for them. And oh, here's something that's interesting. So there's one, it's called where is it? I have all these little fun facts, and there's so much to talk about with this one. Oh, so this one, it's called a Maranta, or they also call it the prayer plant. And what happens is at night, the leaves kind of close up and they look like they're praying. And when Lucy was illustrating this, it was not quite right. And so she asked, can you send an example so I can see what it looks like? Well, my daughter, I have one that's really small. And so it's kind of noticeable, but it's not really noticeable. So my daughter took a time lapse video of her plant from like when it was daytime to nighttime. And we sent the time lapse video to Lucy, and she was able to use that as a reference. So I didn't know, like, I knew all the general, this one needs light, this one needs indirect light, this one needs a lot of water, all I knew how to care for them, but it was fun to do some additional research and learn more facts about them that I wasn't familiar with. So no, I didn't really know about the Monstera, why some leaves had the holes and why some leaves didn't. But it makes perfect sense,
It
right?
does. It does.
So yeah,
So,
I ask kids when I do visits, I ask them, do you know why? And some of the kids will answer, some of them know, or they guess it, like they make an educated guess, and I'm like, you're right.
well, awesome. I want to get to this, and we didn't talk about this earlier, but you talk about working directly with Lucy. A number of our other authors that we've worked with, the author doesn't talk with the illustrator. Is
So
that
we
that way
actually
on most of your books, or just you got lucky with Lucy?
No,
So,
no. We didn't work together at all.
no,
This all comes through. So I work with the editor,
editor.
the publisher, and then there's also an art director. So that's, the artist, the illustrator's counterpart at the publisher. So this all went through, like my
Oh,
editor emailed
yeah.
me and was like, she's got this question. And I said, oh, and so then she met with the art director. So we really don't have any contact at all. And I did get to meet her after this came out. She was at ALA when it was in Chicago. So we did meet and we took a picture and it was awesome. And I don't know how that woman sleeps because she's got two young kids. She illustrates, but she's also an art director at a publisher. So she's got a full-time job. Like, all of this. So yeah, the same thing with the other illustrators. And what's really interesting is, so the illustrator for the How to Explain books is Teresa Martinez. She lives in Mexico. And the illustrator for Growing Together, she lives in Colombia. So it's just so cool because, you can still have working relationships and they can do this art, and it's just all done via email. And it's just our world has just opened up so much now that we have this ability to do this kind of work together.
And that makes more sense. That's what others have said too. Oftentimes people think that the author and the illustrator work closer together. That makes sense, that latter. But the way you were talking about it, I thought maybe it was a direct connection.
Oh yeah, no, it was like a quiet, and that is a good point though, that with a lot of my books, especially the science ones, since I do so much research into the science and I talk to experts and I find, websites and things to, places to research, I do often provide resources to the illustrators. Like I might write the manuscript, and then at the back I'll have like a list of websites of where to go for, like, especially because some of the books have diagrams in them. and charts and very specific, illustrations. So I will go ahead and provide that information, like, research or resources for them, or like, ways to reference things that, I feel like are important, just to, make it easier.
Well, Ruth, as going along with that, let's go to the way back. Ruth and I were in college together around the same time, but you were an advertising major and you worked
I
in
was.
advertising. Tell me the shift from being advertising to a children's author.
So I majored in advertising, and then when I graduated, I worked at an advertising agency in Chicago. So what's interesting is I didn't work well. So my first job was in production, like in the creative department. So I worked on in broadcast production, so TV and radio commercials. But I wasn't writing the ads. I was more like booking the studio time and auditioning the talent, and I would be in. It was really, it was a lot, it was very cool, but it pays this. It was very, I really couldn't even move out of my parents' place like while I was working there. um and then I got a job working at a bigger agency, and I wasn't I was like assisting the account management people. Like it just wasn't, but while I was there, I was able to get tuition reimbursement, so I went to school at night and got my MBA. And then I was working for, oh boy, this is a long story. Anyway, I worked for like a nonprofit association. And then one thing I did that was really interesting was I worked for DePaul University in the psychology department on a research grant from the National Institutes of Health on worksite smoking cessation programs, because I had that business experience, and I could write, letters and correspondence and all that stuff. So I realized that all of the jobs I've ever had have involved writing in some way or another. And the really important transferable skill from advertising, because I did take like copywriting classes, is being able to write tight, right? Like to be able to say what you need to say in as few words as possible. And when my girls were little, I have two daughters, I was staying home with them, and I was starting to feel like I needed something to do. I had taken a pause in my career, and I saw the community college. I went to Oakton Community College. They had a night class for adults in writing for children. I'm like that because I was, reading books with them all the time. We were going to the library. So I'm like, okay, that sounds like fun. So I took the class, and it turned out that it really was kind of helpful that I'd had that education and experience in being able to write succinctly, and especially for the Baby Love Science books, because those books each have like, 150 words in them. So, it's an interesting like evolution in my career. So that's
Well,
how I ended
I
up in
think
writing.
that, but you're talking baby love science. You're talking about how to explain robotics, how to explain coding, and now you got houseplants. So the research part must just excite you, and you must be researching 20 things all the time.
I am 100% a lifelong learner, and I am always reading things, looking for something interesting. I'm very curious, and I want to pass that curiosity on to kids and just show them, like, especially, I mean, such a wide range of things that I've written about, but it all starts with a question. Like, what am I curious about? What do I want to know about? It's, some people will say, write what you know. I'm more like I write what I don't know. I write what I want to know about. And so I do enjoy the research process, and I like learning new things and finding out, interesting pieces of information, and talking to experts and asking them questions, because, I can do a ton of research, but that is no substitute for someone who has been, an aerospace engineer for 30 years, or a physicist, or a paleontologist. And so that's another thing I should mention, is that all of these books, um, especially the Baby Love Science and the How to Explain, are reviewed by experts in the field, both the text and the illustrations, because we want to make sure that everything is completely accurate. So, I judge myself on what the expert says when they read what I've written. And if they, have too many comments or corrections. And, usually I do pretty well. Sometimes there's little nuances that you just don't pick up. But,
Well, especially bringing it from a PhD level down to a
right.
3-year-old.
But
Yeah.
but here's the thing, people say, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Like I do a ton of research and I learn about these topics, and then I have to sit down and think, what's the most important thing here? And what would a child be able to connect with? And I always start with something, a familiar experience or observation, like going to the park and watching a bird fly. It's not magic, it's science, right? And so I just like to explain a little bit, like, do I think I'm going to teach a 2-year-old about, quantum physics? No. But it's all a matter of just sort of sparking that sense of curiosity and asking questions and just learning about new things and not being afraid to like ask questions. And also for parents and caregivers and educators for that matter, kids will have questions that you are not going to know the answer to, and it's okay to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but let's look it up together, let's go find a book together. And that's modeling that whole learning process. And so I like parents to understand that just because your, children ask you a question, they don't expect you're going to know the answer to everything. But if you say, let's figure it out together, that's where all the fun is.
Well, and so let's go and look at a couple of your other books too. And we got to start from the very beginning. Your very first book, Lester Fizz, the
Lester
Bubblegum Art.
Fizz,
Tell
yes.
us a little bit about Lester Fizz, because it was the first one. So
It was
and now it's so different than some of the ones you're writing now.
so different. That was the first book that I ever wrote. It was the first manuscript I ever submitted, and it was acquired by the first editor who ever read it. So
Well, then you went and
I
bought a
was very
lottery ticket
lucky.
too, because that doesn't happen.
It never
So,
happens. And I usually don't like discuss that in a room full of other authors because they're going to like start throwing rotten tomatoes at me. But no, but okay, I had that great experience, and then it took about 8 years for me to sell my next book. So I was spending a lot of time writing. It was beginner's luck for sure. Um, and I'll tell you exactly where that idea came from. My daughter, who just got married, was about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or young at the time. And she was blowing bubbles with some bubble gum. And she said, Mom, wouldn't it be really cool if I could blow a bubble like that guy at the birthday party who was making balloon animals, blowing balloons and making them into the shape of animals? What if I could blow a bubble shaped like a dog? Okay,
what
yeah.
if?
Well, that's the kind of thing a kid comes up with, right? And I said, yeah, that would be really cool. And so, everywhere I go, I have my notebooks. I've got one in my purse and in my car and because at the time we didn't have iPhones with notes on them. And I wrote that down. And there was one day that I sat down and I was like, okay, what am I going to write about today? And I looked through my notebook of ideas and I said, I'm going to write a story about that kid. And there was another experience, a conversation that I'd had with a friend who said to me, he said, well, what part of you is in that book? And I stopped and I thought about it. And I remembered an experience from when I was in preschool when I colored a picture and I thought it was perfect and beautiful. And I remember the teacher said, well, next time, your lines are going in different directions. Next time you should try to keep your crayon lines in the, and I was like crushed. And I thought that it was such a beautiful piece of art. And so I just that's, I think, where the idea came from. He comes from a family of artists and he feels like he doesn't fit in because he doesn't feel like he can paint and he can't draw. But then he discovers that he can blow bubbles in the shape of art. And my research for that came from, what do you think? What's another form of art that would be similar to?
You got me.
Blowing glass.
Oh,
And
yeah.
there was a line in a book that I read about how this artist breathed life into his art. And I used that in my book, and that's what Lester does. right? And he
Right.
breathes life into his art. And then he, like all, first and second graders, lost a tooth. And
Uh-huh.
then his bubbles won't work because he's got a tooth missing. So he has to
Uh-huh.
figure out how to fix that. So, yeah, I mean, that's like another thing that I talk, in school visits that like I don't have to sit here and come up with ideas. They're all around. All I need to do is listen and write things down, and I might come across something on the internet or in a magazine, or I might hear a snippet of a conversation. I'm writing everything down. And all of these things end up being helpful when I'm writing my books.
Well, and then from our perspective, we we sold we gave a lot of these away. Maxine and the greatest garden ever. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the Maxine series.
So the first one, okay, this is a good story too. How much time do we have here? I've got a lot of,
Exactly.
but if you notice, there is a story behind every single
Every
book.
month.
There's a story that goes with it. So the first one, it was called Made by Maxine. Originally, it was different. It was about a woman who drove a truck as her job. And this woman was modeled after my grandmother, who was the kind of woman who would fix the toaster and she would stand outside of the apartment building and wash the windows. And she was just, and so I sent it to my agent and she said, well, you know, kids connect better with books that are about other kids. So can you make this main character a child? And I was like, well, she drives a truck. So no, I can't. But then I started to think, well, what would this character have been like when she was a little girl? And that's where Maxine came from. But my grandmother's name was Rose, and the original character, her name was Rosie. And just as we were starting to send this out, my friend Andrea Beatty's book came out, Rosie Revere
Oh,
Engineer.
yeah.
And so I said, well, hers is the quintessential Rosie. So now I can't have a book about a girl who likes to make and tinker. I can't have that. So I changed her name to Maxine. And I told Andrea that story, and we had like we went out to dinner once, and I was like, "Did I ever tell you this story?" And she's like, "No." And so we had a nice laugh about that. So that was the first Maxine book. And then the second one, I had some different ideas that I sent to my editor, and we picked the garden one. And again, this story is based on my experience as a gardener because we've all had this experience. You go outside, you go to pick, you've got these beautiful tomatoes, and there's a big, beautiful red ripe tomato with a bite taken out of it. And they don't eat the whole tomato, they just take a bite out of it. And it's such a source of frustration. And so I was talking to someone who's a very experienced gardener, and she said the reason their animals are doing that is because they're thirsty and they're taking a bite and they're sucking the juice out of it. They don't really want to eat the tomato, they just want the liquid that's inside of it. So if you put bowls or bird baths of water out where the animals can drink from, they'll leave the tomatoes alone. And it worked. I mean, very once in a while, I'll get a chipmunk or someone takes a bite, but for the most part, I have these new like pasta bowls all around I've got bird baths, but I've got bowls. And then every morning when I go out to water my vegetables, I will clean, fill the water in there. And it really does work. And I tell this story at, schools. And the thing is, I had to realize that the animals live out there. That's their home. And so it was not realistic of me to expect that the animals would leave my vegetables alone. That looks good. That looks tasty, right? But I realized that if I provided for them and gave them something that they needed, that then I would also be able to have my vegetables back. So it was sort of a compromise, knowing that the animals are out there and they're doing what animals do. So I can't get mad at them. But by giving them their water or, having a bird feeder with bird seed that they can. So that's where this Maxine story came from, was she and her friend, and it's a friendship story, and it's about navigating what happens when you and your friend have very different ideas about, what you want to do or how to solve a problem. And they get into an argument about that, and they are not speaking for a little bit. And then my favorite line, and I was like, I don't know, I had such a good time writing this. Um, and so Maxine decided that she needed to make things right with her friend Leo because it takes a long time to grow a garden, but even longer to grow a friend. And that was the important thing, is that her friendship is important to her. And that's where they had their little turning point, and they decided to, they were going to work together to solve this problem. So that's my experience that also inspired maybe. And then I started to notice I've got all these books about like plants and gardens and the environment. And yeah, I guess that's like a theme. I've got my new Baby Love Science is about the weather, which is something I've always been like obsessed with, is the weather. So yeah, got a lot of gardening and nature and outdoor books, which
Well, but then let's not forget, you can't go wrong with One Small Spark, a relatively new one from you as well. Tell us a little bit about this one, because I love your other books, but this is one of my favorites. So
this is a book that I would honestly call like the book of my heart, which a lot of authors will. And it's completely different than anything else. And I tried my hand at a more lyrical style of writing. And it was just something, there's a lot of stuff going around in the world that is not, it's heavy. Sometimes we just feel heavy about things. And what I wanted to communicate was everyone has the power within them to make a decision about the kind of person they want to be and the kind of world they want to live in. And kids don't have a lot of agency. They don't always, they're not always able to make decisions about things going on in their lives. But you have the ability to make a decision about how you're going to act toward other people. And if your friend spills their crayons, on the floor, you have a chance, you can walk by and say, oh, I'm sorry that happened, or you can stop and you can help them pick up their crayons, whatever it might be. And so it's those little things, right? Like, we don't need to change the entire world, but you can do one little thing that might change everything for somebody else.
one little spark.
And
Yeah.
and right, it's that one little spark, and it's based on a Jewish value called tikkun olam, which means to repair the world. And I made the deliberate decision that that is not really mentioned in the story until the very end. And there's an author's note at the end explaining what that's about. Because my feeling was, what we really need right now is to think about the ways that we are similar instead of, there's so
We're
many
different.
ways that we divide ourselves, and we're all different in many different ways. But if you think about like any religion, any culture, faith traditions, families, we all have very similar values, right? And so I wanted this to be a book that anybody could connect with, not just Jewish families and not just wanting to learn about what, Judaism is like, but it's this value that we all have. It's the golden rule. It's do unto others. And so I wanted to be able to, can I just read a little bit from
You
this?
can, yes,
Because
go ahead. Yep.
and this is illustrated by Victoria Tentler Krylov, who I'm just speechless. I mean, her art in this book is just so absolutely magnificent, and it's ethereal. And okay, so imagine the world you want to live in. If that's not the world you see, will you create it? When something is broken or someone needs help, you have a choice, an opportunity to repair the world. In a moment, you decide who you are and who you want to be. A spark that lights your heart becomes an idea, and then action. Maybe you're small, but the problem feels big. It's okay to ask for help because one person can't do everything, but everyone can do one thing, which may lead to another. And I will let everyone explore this book, the rest of it, but it's very short, and I think it will spark a lot of good conversation. And yeah, that's, I mean,
Just the art. So sometimes when the the negativity side, it's all dark. And then it's that one small spark, and all of a sudden it's color. But then, hey, sometimes we go back to it just her use of the art to go along with your words is
yeah,
just so powerful. So
yeah,
yeah.
I'm just, I really, and it's, yeah, I mean, I feel like most of my books kind of say that something similar, right? Like, how are you going to,
Maxine and the friend, and exactly, love
right,
grows, and
right,
what, yeah.
right. And then this one, and the style, I was kind of inspired by when Amanda Gorman read her poem at the inauguration.
Inauguration. Hmm.
Sort of I was like, oh my gosh, look at that young, very young woman, and just the way that she turned a phrase and the way she explored things. I was like,
And
that inspired me, and that made,
and our favorite part of that is I love the poem, but the illustrations are a garden. They're planting a garden, and I'm like, oh, it's an ag in the classroom book. She didn't know it was, but it's an ag in the classroom book
right.
because the illustrations are all about planting a community garden and how you work
And
with that.
yeah,
So
and there's a little free library that they repair, and I'm a steward. I have my own little free library at my house. And sometimes I wonder, like, if these illustrators do research. Oh, well, so here, you know, I had a little dog. I mean, she passed away. She was almost 17, but I had a little dog that it's, if you look on my Instagram, you'll see a picture. But I was like, I wonder if sometimes these illustrators like do research into our life and
stalking
then
you.
try to put little Easter eggs in the book of like things that are meaningful to us. Yeah, but it's absolutely, it's beautiful. It got 2-star reviews, which, I'd never gotten any starred reviews before. And again, I really want it to be something that anybody can pick up and connect with, and that any child can, find some meaning in there.
Well, I know you've got Growing Together coming up. What else is in the pipeline? What else are you working
Well,
on or out there?
so Growing Together comes out in February, and then in March is the 26th book in the Baby Love Science series, which you might be able to see it right here, Baby
Uh-huh.
Loves Robotics. And then the fourth book in the How to Explain Science to a Grown-Up series, which is Aerospace Engineering, which is all about things that fly. And
Sorry,
it's and it's
an ad major from U of I in the
right,
80s
writing about
explaining
aerospace
after.
engineering. But it's a fun book. Like if you're taking a trip, it's all about how the airplane flies. I mean, have who has not wondered, this airplane is enormous. How does it get up into the air? Right? So this explains how that happens, and how rockets are launched into space. And so next year, 2026 is the 10th anniversary of the Baby Love Science series. So in the last 10 years, I've written 26 books in that series. I know.
Wow.
And so we're going to be doing something kind of fun and special and some kind of a celebration and a party because 10
That's a
years
big
of Baby
deal. Yeah.
Loves. Yeah. So stay tuned. Follow me on Instagram. I'm Ruth Spiro, and um, I'll be, posting updates there.
Well, I shared with Bonnie, she's like, oh, how does this work? And I'm like, well, sometimes I provide questions, but I'm like, with Ruth, it's going to be like we're sitting down having dinner and it's cold now. So, we got all this other stuff. So, real quick, for those that are looking for what do we do with this? How does this go together? I mentioned our house plant. We have a farm bite now on house plants because of that. And it's like a mini version of our ag mags. So, information on house plants. And then we also introduce you to somebody who takes care of it. And my joke is I work for the Illinois Farm Bureau. The Illinois Farm Bureau, big building, you see the parking lot in the background, but we actually pay somebody to take care of the plants in the building. So, I mean, there's careers involving plants and how this all works together. We have a number of lessons that we have to go with this, including one called Houseplant Homes, what you talked about to go along with Houseplant Homes, what needs light, how does it do, and which plant goes where in the house, and how do you need it, because this one needs water, this one needs light, this one doesn't, those type of things. So we've got a number of lessons to go along with it, all to go along with our farmers market ag mag. So those specialty crops to go along with that. And one of the things that we promised, and it will be on our website, on our blog site in the next couple of days, it'll probably be up on Monday, but those activities that you can do, teachers, you can do for family reading night, planting things, our Beanie Baby, our building your own desktop garden. A couple of lucky people are going to win our STEM and inquiry activity cards to go along with this. All things to go right along with it. There are great book suggestions to go along with it as well. So that's what we've got going on. And with that, you need to take another drink, Ruth, because we talked for the whole hour. It was awesome. Now, I did have somebody raise their hand. If you had a question, put it in the Q&A. We'll give you another minute. But one of the things we really want to talk and thank Bonnie for joining us and all of your work on Family Reading Night. If people have more questions, go to the secretary. Just Google Illinois Secretary of State Family Reading Night. It'll take you to it. They've got it's a longer address than that, but it'll get you there. Trust me.
Yes. And I didn't want to talk too long because I wanted Ruth to be able to talk.
You did awesome. So that was awesome. We've got all these suggestions, lots of great activities. I'm not seeing anybody questions coming in, but we're going to go ahead and finish this up. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited about all the work that you've done, and Love Grows. We're big fans of Love Grows, and we're really looking forward to the new book coming up. And we were talking about this before you all got on. We've got plans for a book birthday party coming up in February, so we'll be working with some Chicago area schools to try and promote this. But with that, everyone else, look for the link for the Jot-Form for a chance for you to win copies of the book. You get a copy of the book. You get our ag mags. You get everything you need for Family Reading Night. It's short of the poster. You'll have to download the poster, but you'll have everything you need for Family Reading Night. We'll do that until Tuesday. And right now, we are saying it is right at the top of the hour, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Ruth, Bonnie, thank you both for your work on this, and we look forward to chatting with you soon. With that, take care, folks. We appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.